At home on every rural road, Hyundai Country Calendar.
It's about sharing the love with the beekeeping. Oh, it's a beautiful sight, eh? Beautiful place to be when the flower's on.
It wasn't my plan to be stuck in the office.
You have to respect people, respect the land, and the business can flourish. From land to brand, we own the whole operation. It's the Goldbilla. I think beekeeping's the best job in the world, simply because this is your office.
Rob Murray's office grows a crop that feeds one of New Zealand's fastest growing export industries, Manuka honey.
What was appealing was the Manuka, the resource was on our land, which is the multiply owned Māori land, which has been unutilised for years and years. Well, it has been utilised, but not by Māori. It's the Goldbilla. I get anything from 20,000 to 50,000 bees in one beehive.
With hives all over the North Island, Rob's running around 200 million stock units from his Kaitaia base in the far north. The Murrays have invested heavily in New Zealand's latest export industry.
The government intends to grow it in the next 10 years out to a $1.2 billion industry, so we want to be part of that.
8 years ago, the Murrays started with 350 hives. Rob and Lonnie now have 5,000 hives, a staff of 20, and their own processing factory.
Over the past year and a half, we have set up our own extraction plant, and over the last 6 months, we've also added packing to our business. So we're controlling the whole thing from the beekeeping right through to our markets now.
Lonnie has given up her job as a primary school teacher to run the company.
Lonnie is really the backbone of the business. Whenever there's problems, all the problems go straight back to the office.
Dividing responsibilities is really hard, and actually finding Rob half the time is really hard. I basically here most of the time in the office now, and Rob is out in the field.
Rob's 3 sons all work for the family business. George is leading today's team. As the company's expanded, Rob has had to delegate.
Oh, well, as the business grows, you need more trucks, you need more workers, you need more, everything just doubles, so do the headaches. I wouldn't buy a truck off a beekeeper. I might buy it off a Remuera farmer. They do take a bit of a pounding.
A couple of puffs, just enough to calm them down.
Guys, as soon as they open the hive, the first thing they're trained to do is look for disease. It's their first approach when they open the box at any time. And once they've cleared the disease, then the harvesting starts. This is the real pure stuff, so that's the stuff we're after. Manuka and the high medicinal UMF stuff.
Ooh, she's cooking on the suit.
The honey frames will be going to the factory, but the bees will have to stay behind.
Give them about an hour and they'll all be back in their house and restructuring the furniture again for the next lot of honey.
This block is owned by Rob and Lonnie and their hapu, but Rob leases sites all over the North Island. They're Māori-owned blocks in multiple ownership. When disputes between shareholders prevent effective management of the land, the Māori Land Court steps in and appoints a trustee to manage the block.
Because of multiply owned land and the shareholders don't get on so well, and that's where we come in to help.
It's a win-win partnership. The shareholders get income off their land, and Rob has access to Manuka as far afield as the East Coast, Central Plateau and Taranaki.
Now we've got the honey off, the trucks will head back to the factory.
The helicopter is an important part of Rob's operation. He uses it to move hives around his remote blocks. That's tomorrow's job. Today, Rob and pilot Jim McMillan are having a look to decide where to move the hives to. The Manuka flowering season lasts about 6 weeks. It gets later the higher you go.
The lower country, the flower is gone and there's no more bud. But as you see, all this higher country still glistering. So all those hives down in the lower country, we'll lift them up, put them up into the higher country.
These are about the highest ones up here, so there's a few sites up through here we can put a few hives in.
Yep.
Get another few weeks out of that flower.
Yeah, she's looking good down there, ain't it?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, there's some of my horses here, Jimmy. Oh, yeah, they must have got out of the paddock. Some bugger left the gate open. Nice little herd, though.
While they're here, Jim and Rob can't resist a little sightseeing.
Oh, boy, you can see the crayfish from here.
Pretty clean, mate.
Yeah, man, they're getting sunburns, but pretty unique looking bit of country, eh?
It's beautiful, mate.
Now they've chosen new sites for the hives, tomorrow the real work will begin. Early morning on beekeeper Rob Murray's remote family block at Whangape on the coast near Kaitaia in the far north. Rob's son George is part of the team shifting beehives from one inaccessible spot to another.
I think we'll drop a couple of fellas in there, shut the doors, someone up the other end, unhook, and just rip into it.
Rob met pilot Jim McMillan at a beekeeper's hui.
He owned 150 hives and he was keen to do a lot of flying. And I thought I'll try him out. And from that point on, well, we just became good friends and good business partners.
It's not just the hives that get transported by chopper. The team has to get into the sites too. Rob's son Naki is first up. Next, it's his brother George's turn. Dangling on the end of a rope many metres in the air may not be everyone's cup of tea, but these boys love it. The crew is dropped in different places. Some, like Rob, go to prepare hives for lifting. Others are dropped at the new sites ready to receive them. Rob's been flying under helicopters for 8 years, but he reckons the thrill never goes away.
It's always exciting. We get to see the country out of a chopper, and this job takes you all around the whole island.
The early morning start is for a reason. The doors to the hives have to be closed while the bees are still inside, before they've left for the day's nectar gathering.
We get in early, close the hives up before they leave to go to work, and fly them up into higher country, open the door, and they'll have some new territory to go and work.
The manuka on the lower parts of this block has finished flowering, while the upland trees are still in full nectar production. The flowering season is also later, the further south you go.
The season starts in the far north, which is early September, and it starts working its way down the country. There's a window sort of around about a 6-week window. Taranaki sort of finishes off around mid-January, early Feb, and she's all over.
When the season finishes here in a couple of weeks, these hives will be moved to the east coast.
It's all about chasing the flower down the country and more or less double dipping, rather than having permanent sites. If you have a bad year, you've got to wait another whole year before you can get another shot. So yeah, it's about eliminating your risk a bit. Today it's just me and my sons. When it comes to doing this sort of work, we like to make the calls, you know, whether we're moving bees out, moving them in, or whatever, making the decisions. I think it's awesome to have a job that can sustain us to work in and around our whenua. Yeah, I just think it's awesome being able to work with family.
George left the army to join the family firm.
I was just over it after a little while.
having a bit of fun, but the business was starting to take off and just wanted to be a part of it, really.
Being part of a family business means having your dad as boss. And a boss has to be tough sometimes.
Nah, he's hard up. Yeah. Slave driver. Nah.
Oh, but gentle boss.
Gets pretty hard out. Long hours, long nights, long days.
You got to keep pushing your boys because, you know, the hours that we do is we're moving the bees at night and working the hives during the day. So the workers can get a little bit catty, so you got to want to be there.
To ferry the hive safely, Jim has developed his own carrying system with a stabiliser.
Got a 100-foot specialised long line here, and then on the end of it we've got what we call our dart. We designed that ourselves. The dart does two things really. It really increases our ferry speed, so we can ferry it up to like 100 knots with the dart, and also the other purpose of the dart and the fins on it are to stop the pellets from spinning.
Another bit of a concrete pad here, Jim, and we'll put both of them on here. I like my beekeepers to not wear gloves, because if they're wearing gloves, they seem to be rough, because they can't feel the stings. Bees are like horses. If you mistreat them, you know, the horse will kick you. Well, you mistreat a bee, well, he'll sting you. I've had a few stings and I've had a few kicks. Nothing that doesn't heal, you know. We're a bit excited over the little ride. First thing, we open the doors, the bees start getting their bearings, and then they're straight out to work. Little workaholics. A bee's life is about 4 to 6 weeks when they are working hard. First 2 weeks of that bee's life is to work as a nurse bee in the house, doing all the housework. And as it gets older, it becomes a field bee. Once they hit the fields, they just work till their wings wear off.
With hives all over the North Island, the Murrays need to know what's happening in each area. And new technology is helping. Sensors on the hive send data back to the office.
I'm just looking at a location we have down the line that has HiveMine monitors on it. This red line here is showing us the internal temperature of the hive. The jagged line here is showing us bee activity. Then we have the green line and the yellow line are showing us the weight gain since those hives have been put into place.
The weight gain is the amount of honey that's being produced.
They're very good, especially when you've got hives way down the coast there and you're at home and you don't know what's happening down there. Well, you can actually go on your computer and that sort of gives you an idea of what's happening there.
After outsourcing the extraction and packaging for 7 years, Rob and Lonnie recently took the plunge and bought their own processing plant. It was originally built as a cheese factory and then mothballed.
Rob had this factory on his wish list for years, kept coming backwards and forwards, checking it out. He knew that was the perfect place for this.
It's made life easier for us. It's created more jobs. It's given us the opportunity to have more control over our own honey.
It's been a great move. It was the right move, even though I was unsure all along.
Oh, well, a big mortgage, always nothing wrong with being in debt.
But bees aren't the only livestock on Rob and Lonnie Murray's Northland block. They also graze cattle. Some of them are rather wild. Rob has to get the wild cattle off his land to make room for his domestic herd. He's brought in some mates who make a living out of mustering cattle.
We all help one another with the sort of mate. I'm the bee man, so I look after the bees on their places, and when I need a hand to round up, I call on the boys, and they're like the best in the trade. It's all about looking after one another and then working with good people.
Steve Moray is looking forward to the day's work.
Always fun, chasing the wild cattle around. Well, mustering the wild cattle, I should say. We always call it chasing.
Steve's dad, Alan, has been mustering for Rob's whānau since he was young.
Alan's seen me grow up from a little kid, so he's like our kaumātua.
This is their third crack at Rob's wild bulls.
We've had a couple of musters and it went good, real good.
The bulls can be aggressive, but nothing puts Alan off.
The bigger the better.
The day promises excitement, and Lonnie, various family members and some of her staff are coming to watch. It's a welcome break from the bees. Alan Tubbs, known as Tubbsy, is calling the shots today.
This here is where I started wild cattle chasing 23 years ago. It's neat to be back out here. Yeah, it's always a challenge. Just stay high, just stay above the cattle. Gives you a chance to get away because they can cover 100 metres in about 2 seconds.
And they're in for a wild time of it.
When they do come, they'll come charging.
Behind Ollie! Behind Ollie!
Rob Murray's wild cattle muster is not going according to plan. Chief Cowboy Tubbsy is trying to use the cause of the problem, the helicopter, to get the muster back on track.
The helicopter's just taken off now, bro. He's going to pump up on the corner and there's a little bunch of cattle there. We're unsure if they're wild or tamies.
What a disaster. I was like, no.
The team hadn't planned on pilot Jim McMillan being in this area.
Oh, what's happened, the cattle, they're sitting around in the harbour entrance. But before we got here, the helicopter had been working and frightened them. And they bolted around here and back up into this bit of native. So Manukau's not just good for honey, it's good for hiding in tea.
The decoy cattle are in place, but the ferals are playing hide and seek.
Oh, they're going to be hard. But when they do come, they'll come charging. So we've got a mob for them to run into.
Hit it! Hit it! Hit it! Sit down, Ollie! Hey, Ollie! Behind Ollie! Behind Ollie!
These musterers have all had a few close shaves.
On another job, just happened to be in the wrong place. The dogs were dogging a big bull and he just come out around the edge of the scrub. He decided he was going to have me. You get the odd one that'll hunt you and just keep coming. And he was just one of those that kept coming at a full gallop downhill. Just got in under the horse and just flipped the horse up so that we were both just sliding along the ground. Yeah, but you put those ones down to luck that you can get up and get on your horse and carry on again.
We got a couple of good bulls. One younger one and this big fella there. So we're quite happy with our day.
The final push along the beach to the yards is a coaching session for the wild cattle.
Once you get them into those coach cattle, they respect the dog then, and then you can just use a soft dog to steer them. If they poke too far out of that mob, just got to give them a little reminder of that's not how the game's played. You get your head back in there.
Hand tank! Hand tank! Heel! Left.
Now we got him into a big pen here. We're going to run him down the drafting pen. He'll get pulled out and loaded straight into the front pen of the truck.
When you get back to here and you've got a yard full of wild cattle, that's your adrenaline rush.
Raging Bull isn't happy.
That's him, Chris.
A long time ago, Rob's family lost their land. It's only recently come back to the hapu with the help of some generous people.
The land, we always believed that it was under a 99-year lease, and all of a sudden it went up for sale, and it upset us because the millionaires had stepped in to purchase it, and we still weren't quite clear how the land was alienated from us. It's always been part of our whanaungatanga, a part of our history. It means everything to our hapu. It's a living and it's a breathing thing. It's not just a piece of land.
The block became owned by a developer who subdivided it, but then went bust. As a result, a Pākehā family from Auckland who'd invested with the developer ended up owning one half. When that family heard the land's history, they offered it back to Rob and his iwi.
It was so good of them to come back to our iwi to give us the opportunity to buy it back. And part of that, they went and rebought the other half of the farm that had been sold and put it into the same deal that they agreed to sell it to our iwi for. So there are still some genuine people in this world.
Back at the Kaitaia processing plant, the Murray's honey is being packaged. Although Taitokoro honey can be bought in New Zealand, most is exported.
Our markets to Japan are booming at the moment. This is their peak time for ordering, so we're getting really good regular orders heading that way.
The Murrays are driven by the desire to create opportunities and jobs, first for whānau, and then for the whole local community.
Our plans for the future, Rob?
Well, my plan is to, in the last sort of 10 years, we've built our company up to a 5,000 hive operation with 20 beekeepers, and my plan for the future is to build up to a 10,000 hive operation. And I think there's still plenty of space to do so. It's just convincing the bank manager.
Yeah.
Next time...
We're not only producing food, we're certainly wanting to look after animals as best we can.
And now we're really starting to enjoy the biodiversity that we have on farm.
And their whole community supported them when they faced a family tragedy.
I don't think it would have been good for the boys if they'd had to move off their home. I didn't want that to happen.
That's next time on Hyundai Country Calendar.
Country Calendar is brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand. Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.